the world of jazz has fallen silent. The great drummer Jack DeJohnette has passed away at the age of 83. His death has touched the hearts of musicians and fans around the world. Jack was not just a drummer. He was a voice of rhythm, calmness, and truth. He played with some of the greatest jazz artists in history: Miles Davis, Keith Jarrett, Herbie Hancock, and many others. But now, his drumsticks have stopped. The man who gave rhythm to silence has taken his final bow in the last few years of his life. Jack struggled with heart problems. Even while he was sick, he always carried a calm smile. He never complained, and he continued to talk about music with love and peace. His last picture, posted on October 24th, showed him sitting quietly with one hand on his drum. That picture became a symbol of his farewell, gentle, peaceful, and full of grace. 2 days later, on October 26th, Jack passed away at the Health Alliance Hospital in Kingston, New York. His wife Lydia and his daughters Farah and Mina were by his side. The moment was quiet, just like his life. There was no drama, no noise, only stillness. After his death, his family announced 2 memorials. The first was private, held at their home in Woodstock, where Jack had lived for more than 50 years. Only 50 people were invited, close friends and fellow musicians. The house was simple. No flowers, no trumpets, no speeches. In one room, there was a piano, a pair of drums, and black and white photos of Jack on the walls. Lydia had arranged everything exactly as he wanted. The only sound that day was the wind outside and the quiet footsteps of those who came to say goodbye. The mood was peaceful, like meditation, just as Jack would have wished. A few days later, on November 2nd, a public memorial was held in New York City. More than 1,500 people attended, and it was broadcast live so fans from around the world could take part. The hall was filled with silence and emotion. There was no big stage or bright lights, just a few instruments, some soft lighting, and a piano waiting in the center. Everyone sat quietly, remembering Jack not just as a musician, but as a man who lived with truth and balance. One by one, some of the world's best jazz artists came forward to perform in Jack's memory. Brian Blade, Esperanza Spalding, and Chick Corea Jr. each played short pieces inspired by him. Their music was slow, emotionally, and full of love. But the moment that touched everyone's heart came when Keith Jarrett, Jack's close friend and musical partner for nearly 40 years, walked to the piano. The audience rose to their feet in silence. Jarrett sat down, took a deep breath, and began to play My Foolish Heart, one of the most beautiful songs from their legendary trio. As the music began, the room filled with emotion. The notes were slow, tender, and fragile, as if Jarrett was talking to his old friend through the piano. When the last note faded away, Jarrett looked up and spoke softly. He said, "Jack didn't die. He just moved to an eternal 7 to 8 time." Those simple words carried deep meaning. They meant that Jack's rhythm, his heartbeat, would continue forever. Then, Jarrett played a short, gentle improvisation and stopped. Nobody clapped. Nobody moved. The silence in that moment said more than any applause ever could. Jack's wife Lydia ended the ceremony with a few words. Her voice was calm and full of love. She said he lived for music and left in music. The memorial ended quietly, without tears or sadness. Only peace. People left the hall with heavy hearts, yet somehow comforted. They felt that Jack was still there, living in every rhythm, every breath, in every silence around them. After the funeral, musicians from around the world began sharing old photos and memories of Jack online. Many called it the concert of silence. Others said it was the most touching farewell they had ever seen. International music magazines described it as a funeral without grand gestures, but filled with deep emotion. There were no flowers, no big speeches, and no loud music, yet it was perfect. It reflected exactly who Jack DeJohnette was: calm, humble, and wise, even in death. He taught the world that greatness doesn't need noise, it only needs truth. To truly understand why his loss felt so powerful, we have to go back to where his journey began, to the story of a young boy from Chicago who fell in love with rhythm. Jack DeJohnette was born in 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. He grew up in a middle-class family that loved music. His mother was a gospel singer, and his uncle worked as a DJ at a local radio station. Every morning, Jack heard his mother's warm voice singing hymns. And every night, the sound of jazz poured from nearby clubs into his bedroom window. Those sounds shaped his childhood. From an early age, he learned that music could express what words could not. When Jack was 4 years old, he began learning classical piano. His teacher quickly noticed his natural sense of rhythm. Jack could play a piece after hearing it only once. By the time he was 13, he was playing piano in church and small neighborhood bands. He dreamed of becoming a professional pianist like Art Tatum or Oscar Peterson. Everyone around him thought that was his path. But at 18, something unexpected happened that would change his life forever. During a club performance, Jack was fascinated by the drummer on stage. The power, the control, and the rhythm spoke to him in a new way. That night, he decided to switch instruments. His family and friends were surprised. Some even told him it was a mistake, but Jack was determined. He started from zero, practicing drums every day for hours. His goal wasn't just to play beats, but to understand rhythm as life itself. He practiced until his hands bled, mastering control of both movement and emotion. Within 3 years, he had become one of Chicago's most respected young drummers. In 1963, his talent caught the attention of jazz legend John Coltrane, who invited him to join a jam session. After the session, Coltrane put his hand on Jack's shoulder and said, "You have the rhythm of the heart." Those words gave Jack the confidence to keep going. 3 years later, in 1966, he joined the Charles Lloyd Quartet. Touring across Europe and Asia, audiences were amazed by his style. Powerful yet sensitive, technical yet emotional. Critics called him a three-dimensional drummer because his playing combined skill, feeling, and freedom all at once. By 1969, Jack's career reached new heights when Miles Davis invited him to join his band. At the time, Davis was exploring new forms of jazz, mixing electric instruments and rock influences. Jack became part of the team that recorded the historic album Bitches Brew in 1970, a record that changed the future of modern music. Miles Davis later said, "Jack doesn't play time, he controls time." That was the kind of respect Jack earned among his peers. He wasn't just keeping rhythm, he was shaping it. Over the next few decades, Jack worked with some of the most famous names in jazz, including Herbie Hancock, Freddie Hubbard, Bill Evans, and most importantly, Keith Jarrett. His long partnership with Jarrett became legendary. Together, they formed the Keith Jarrett Trio, one of the most respected jazz groups of all time. Their chemistry on stage was magical. The piano and drums didn't compete, they danced together. Each note was a conversation, full of trust and intuition. Critics described their music as pure harmony, the sound of friendship expressed through rhythm. In 1972, Jack married Lydia, a young music student he had met in Boston. She became not only his wife, but also his manager and producer. They shared a deep understanding of music and life. In 1975, they settled in Woodstock, New York, where they lived for the rest of their lives together. Their daughters, Farah and Mina, both followed in their father's artistic footsteps. One as a violinist, the other as a music producer. The DeJohnette family lived simply, surrounded by nature, love, and music. There were no scandals, no drama, just honesty and harmony. Throughout his life, Jack believed that music was not about fame or money. It was about sharing energy, peace, and understanding. He never smoked, never drank, and spent time every morning in meditation. He once said, "If you can hear the silence inside you, you can play any rhythm." His calm personality influenced everyone around him. Fellow musicians often said that Jack never raised his voice, even during disagreements. When he had a problem with someone, he resolved it through music, not arguments. For him, playing was a form of communication, a way to connect without words. Jack's deep interest in peace and meditation also showed in his other passion, painting. In his free time, he painted abstract works inspired by rhythm and sound. His exhibition Rhythm and Color opened in New York in 2018 and showed how he saw art and music as one. He used brushes the same way he used drumsticks, to create movement and emotion. Friends called him the meditator among drums because he brought stillness into everything he did. Even as he grew older, Jack continued to teach, perform, and compose. He believed that music should serve people, not ego. His concerts often felt like conversations, gentle, honest, and real. Audiences didn't just hear the drums, they felt them. Each beat carried meaning. Each silence carried thought. That was Jack's gift, turning rhythm into wisdom. In the mid-1980s, Jack began focusing more on giving back to others. He wanted to help young musicians find their voice. In 1985, he started the Youth Jazz Workshop in his hometown of Chicago. It was a free program that offered music lessons to children who couldn't afford them. Jack used his own money to buy drums and instruments for his students. He didn't want any talented child to give up on music because of poverty. Many of those students later became professional musicians and always remembered Jack as their first true teacher. His goal was simple: to help the next generation find their rhythm in life. Later, he worked with the National Endowment for the Arts (NEA) to create scholarships for young black drummers. He wanted to preserve the traditional African-American drumming styles during a time when electronic music was taking over. Because of these efforts, critics began calling him the timekeeper of tradition. Jack believed that jazz was more than entertainment. It was a cultural treasure that connected people to their roots. In the early 2000s, Jack's interests expanded to include environmental work. He started a project called Earth Rhythms, a series of benefit concerts to raise money for tree planting and river cleaning around Woodstock. He often said, "When the earth is hurt, music loses its rhythm." Thousands of people attended his concerts, and together they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for reforestation. Jack also helped hospitals explore the use of drum therapy for mental health. He believed that rhythmic sound could calm the mind and help people heal from emotional pain. He worked quietly behind the scenes, never seeking credit, just wanting to help others through music. In 2012, Jack received one of the greatest honors in American jazz. He was named a NEAT Jazz Master, recognizing his lifetime of achievement and contribution to the art of jazz. By then, he had released over 100 albums, recorded with countless legends, and influenced musicians around the world. But Jack remained the same humble man he always was. He continued to live in Woodstock, surrounded by nature, family, and peace. He built a small studio behind his house, where he recorded his own projects and hosted young drummers for workshops. After his passing, his daughters decided to keep the studio open under the new name Woodstock Rhythm House. As a tribute to their father's dream of sharing music freely, his family also created the Jack DeJohnette Drum Fund Scholarship, which supports talented young musicians with grants for instruments, lessons, and training. Through this, Jack's mission continues, helping people find purpose and peace through rhythm. Beyond awards and money, Jack's true legacy lies in his philosophy of life. He believed that music and meditation were one. He saw drumming not as noise, but as breathing, a natural rhythm that connects every living thing. He used to say, "Each drumbeat is a breath. Each performance is a conversation between sound and silence." That idea touched many younger musicians, including Brian Blade and Eric Harland, who often described him as a guide and a teacher. They said Jack showed them that true strength comes from calmness and balance. To jazz fans around the world, Jack represented peace in a noisy world. He proved that you don't need drama or fame to be great. What makes someone a legend is honesty, discipline, and love for their art. His life reminds us that music can be a form of meditation, a way to listen not only to sound, but to the world itself. He once said in an interview, "Music is not something I do. It's who I am. It's how I breathe." When Jack passed away, many of his friends said that he had simply gone to another rhythm, one that continues forever. Keith Jarrett's words at the funeral captured that perfectly. He didn't die. He just moved to an eternal 7/8 time.
Wow.
Those who were present said that moment felt timeless, as if the two musicians were still playing together beyond this world. Today, Jack DeJohnette's influence continues through his recordings, his students, and his philosophy. His drum patterns are studied by musicians everywhere. His albums, from Bitches Brew with Miles Davis to Standards Live with Keith Jarrett, remain landmarks of jazz. And his paintings, displayed in the exhibition Rhythm and Color, reveal another side of his creative soul. Each line, each color, seems to pulse with the same rhythm that once came from his drums. From a small boy in Chicago who dreamed of playing piano, to a global icon who changed how the world hears rhythm, Jack DeJohnette lived a full, beautiful, and meaningful life. He showed that greatness comes not from fame, but from staying true to your heart. His rhythm continues to echo softly in the silence, a reminder that every beat, like every life, is part of a greater song. He taught the world that silence has its own sound, and peace has its own rhythm. And maybe, somewhere beyond time, Jack is still playing softly, calmly, beautifully, keeping the rhythm of eternity. There are moments in life when silence feels louder than sound, when the absence of a single voice changes everything. The world of jazz has just faced one of those moments. A rhythm that had guided generations suddenly faded into stillness. The man who once carried time in his hands, who gave heartbeat to music itself, has taken his final rest. But as every drummer knows, rhythm never truly ends. It only changes form. And so begins the story of Jack DeJohnette, the man whose drums once spoke the language of life itself. For more than 6 decades, Jack's rhythms shaped the sound of modern jazz. His playing wasn't just about speed or technique, it was about spirit. He played softly, but every note carried meaning. He could turn chaos into calm and silence into song. Those who saw him perform often said it felt like watching meditation in motion. He didn't just hit drums, he breathed through them. To Jack, rhythm was not only music, it was truth. It was the invisible connection between the human heart and the pulse of the universe. From the smoky clubs of Chicago, in the 1960s, to the great concert halls of Europe, Jack DeJohnette built bridges through rhythm. He worked with legends who changed the face of jazz: Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Keith Jarrett, and Herbie Hancock. Yet he remained humble, calm, and grounded. He believed that the purpose of music was not to impress, but to heal. And that belief guided everything he did, both on and off the stage. Those who met him often described him as quiet and kind. He listened more than he spoke. When others rushed to fill space with sound, Jack found beauty in stillness. He often said that true rhythm lives in silence, that the spaces between beats are as important as the beats themselves. This simple idea changed how musicians thought about drumming. He taught that rhythm is not just physical, but spiritual, that every strike of the drum carries energy, emotion, and intention. Even after becoming one of the world's most respected drummers, Jack never saw himself as a star. He saw himself as a student, always learning, always growing. He studied the rhythms of African drumming, Indian tabla, and Native American chants. He blended them into his own sound, creating a universal language of percussion that crossed all borders. His music spoke to everyone, no matter where they came from or what language they spoke. But perhaps the most beautiful part of Jack's story is not found in fame or awards. It is found in his peace, the quiet dignity with which he lived his life. He taught by example that greatness has nothing to do with noise and everything to do with truth. His final years were spent surrounded by nature, meditation, and the simple joy of sound. When the time came for him to leave this world, he did so with the same grace that defined his music, gently, peacefully, and in rhythm with the silence. This is not just the story of a musician. It is the story of a soul who found harmony between life and sound. A man whose final beat reminds us all that, even in silence, rhythm remains. And so, with respect and gratitude, we remember him.